Hey everyone and welcome. We're in round 10, first round of day 2, Sam Black versus Ami Obius after the draft. Both players lead on lands. Sam's playing kind of a nice little blue-white base artifact deck, and looks like Ami has got some mountains, some swamp, or an island, and I see an Academy Ruins hiding back there. Maybe he has some artifacts in the works as well.
Ooh, 2 plays here from Sam on turn 2.
That's a nice little Ethereum Sculptor action we're seeing there. Plays the turn 2 Sculptor, which lets him play the Arcbound Worker for free.
Yeah.
Just getting a better glimpse of Ami's hand there.
Did Ami do nothing this turn? No land drop, no spell? Is that what just happened?
Nothing happened for Ami. Who was on the play this game?
Assuming Ami was, but I guess I don't know.
But Ami seems to have some fairy action going on. I saw a Latchkey Fairy hiding around in his hand, so we might see that come out to play a little bit. And there's a mountain from Sam Black.
Potential spell stutter sprite here from Ami.
Sam gets in for 2, one with the Worker, one with the Sculptor. And there's a 1-mana Sculptor for Sam Black, and the other Sculptor reduces the Sculptor by 1, and now all of Sam's artifacts cost 2 less to cast.
Yes, which is really crazy.
And we see in Sam's hand he's got Perilous Research and an Empty the Warrens, so he did end up putting the Empty the Warrens in his artifact deck.
So he's playing Artifact Storm here at GP Vegas.
If he finds a land, and so Ami plays Academy Ruins.
All right.
So Ami plays Academy Ruins and then passes. In Sam's upkeep, he casts Pestermite.
Targeting the Vivid Creek, he's going to tap it down.
Right.
Sam's not really short on mana here, but
the 2/1 flyer doing pretty good work for Ami here.
See, Sam has a Mere Retriever in his hand. Didn't cast it last turn.
He's probably saving it for that Empty the Warrens.
Mm-hmm. But here's a Perilous Research, so it looks like Sam's starting things off here, and he's going to be looking to refill his hand. He's got to sacrifice a permanent here.
Right. He's going to sacrifice that Worker and modular right over to the Sculptor, which can now safely swing past the Pestermite potentially.
Right.
As a 2/3.
Ooh, there's an Esperzoa, though. He doesn't have the blue, at least on the table.
Tapped Vivid Meadow for Sam Black. Sam's hand looking quite stocked. He's got an Esperzoa, an Empty the Warrens, a Mere Retriever, a Path to Exile as well, so he could remove anything big that Ami puts on the table. Sam gets in with both the Sculptors, the 2/3 and the 1/2, and Ami says, no trades, no blocks, I'm good. Ami draws, and now he's got to think. I think I see a Pirate Spellbomb hanging there, a Latchkey Fairy. He's got a couple options.
Spellbomb seems pretty sweet here.
If you're Ami, would you lay the Spellbomb and kill off that Sculptor?
I think so.
Ami serves in with that Pestermite.
I think he's missing a land drop here again, so I don't know that he's got. Oh, right, he's got that Latchkey Fairy still. I think I'd rather do that.
Yeah, same.
Drawing a card and trying to hit my land drop seems better, but he missed it again, unfortunately. The
one thing that is great about Pirate Spellbomb, I would have also prowled the Fairy, but the Spellbomb, he's got the Academy Ruins to cycle it over and over again.
Yep.
Or so he can, play the Spellbomb, kill off a creature, put it on top of his library, kill off another guy.
Yeah, unfortunately that Ethereum Sculptor has 3 toughness, thanks to the Arcbound Worker counter, but the other one doesn't.
Right.
Sam's got plenty of mana at his disposal here, though.
And down comes Esperzoa for Sam Black, which is one of the key cards in Sam's deck, not only being a 4/3 flyer, but also allowing him to return cards like...
He's going to empty here. I mean, he's played an Esperzoa for 1 blue. He's played a free Mere Retriever. He's going to attack with both of his creatures. Now he's also got a Path to Exile here, but he doesn't have enough mana, and plus he wants to save it for something a bit scarier, I'd assume, so he's just going to empty here. Empty's pretty darn good versus 2 1-toughness fairies.
Absolutely. And I mean, Ami has 5 flying power on the board, but Sam's going to make, what, 6 tokens here?
6 tokens,
in addition to the Esperzoa he has, and the Esperzoa can profitably block the Pestermite.
Right.
And Ami just trades off Latchkey Fairy with Ethereum Sculptor. And here comes Empty the Warrens for Sam Black. And there's that Empty he took over the Aaron Ephemeron.
And there it is. So he clearly had a plan in mind, and it certainly looks great here. Empty the Warrens, really good versus some decks, less good versus others, of course, but it's good against a nearly empty board state and an opponent who's missed 2 land drops every time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ami, I don't know if he has a Thundercloud Shaman or something in his deck, but that would be something he would want here. But even then, on only 3 lands.
Yeah, he needs another red source and another land. He's way, way behind now, as Sam's had a fairly quick start anyway.
Or just a creature with a 2nd toughness to start blocking those goblin tokens. Either way, Ami has no good blocks right now.
No.
And Sam's board, I mean, of 6 goblin tokens, 1/2 Ethereum Sculptor, Esprezoa, and Mirror Retriever is quite.
Yeah, he can just pick up the Mirror Retriever, play it for 1 mana, attack with the team.
And this is where we see some of the synergies of Modern Masters kind of work together in weird ways. We've seen some weird decks show up, and here we have a Storm Affinity deck.
Yes.
Your stuff is cheaper with the Sculptors and Affinity, and then you use Storm out because you have all this extra mana.
Exactly.
It's cool to see that kind of sideways strategy.
That's really cool.
Have you drafted anything like that, Marshall?
Storm Affinity, no, but I have. I've drafted Storm onto Arcane with Dampened Thoughts, so went a little deep on that one.
So Ami just passes the turn here, and Sam is happy to pick up his Mirror Retriever. Draws an island, and yeah, just crashes in with everybody. Oh, Pestermite from Ami will tap down the Esprezoa, but then yeah, everyone comes serving on in. Ami blocks Pestermite to Ethereum Sculptor.
Yeah, that's gonna drop Ami down to 8 here, though.
And there's the Mirror Retriever for Sam Black.
Looks like his mana woes are going to get the better of him here, potentially. Now, there is a nice play. If Ami can take down that Mirror Retriever, it will mean that Sam has to pick up his Esprezoa, and Ami can live for another turn here. Live for another turn as the board sits anyway, but...
And we know Ami has the Pirate Spellbomb in his hand.
That's
Something
right.
worth noting, it might not be relevant in this game if Sam just crushes Ami, but in Ami's hand is a Sword of Fire and Ice.
Oh, is that right?
And that is certainly a powerhouse card.
Absolutely. Now, weakened slightly by the fact that a lot of Sam's creatures are colorless. But still, a card you want in your hand at all times.
And even his 3 Esprezoas are blue. I mean, they're artifacts, but they're still blue.
They are.
Meaning that he can block with, say, a Pestermite on the Esprezoa, and his Pestermite wouldn't die, or can attack right into it. So there's the Spellbomb for Ami. And do you think we'll see him just crack that on the Retriever here? All right. He also suspends Aaron Ephemeron.
You would think so. I mean, he's in a bad spot either way. No, he didn't. He's going to let him pick it up.
All right. So Sam returns his Mirror Retriever.
And he drew blue Spellbomb.
Oh, blue Spellbomb. That'll take that Pestermite right out of the way.
Yep, and that is going to be the game here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I don't think that there's really anything that Ami can have here to not die.
Right.
Even if he takes down one of the tokens, he's still dead.
Yep. And that's lethal. Ami packs him in. And we're already headed off to game 2. Sam Black's deck did exactly what he wanted.
He did, and he faced very little opposition. A couple of Pestermites and a late Spellbomb there from Ami means that Sam, I mean, the key here is that Sam was able to execute his game plan, and it worked exactly how he drew it up. Now, the fact that he didn't really face anything.
Speaking of how he drew it up, let's take a look once again at the archetype that Sam's playing here a little bit.
White-blue artifact / storm.
Well,
just like R&D, just like R&D drew this archetype up.
I'm pretty sure somewhere Eric Lauer is just cackling maniacally.
Yeah.
This is how it was meant to be played.
Exactly.
So I mean, here's some of the top commons, and once again we see Sanctum Gargoyle, a key card, Bound in Silence, a nice little removal spell, but Sanctum Gargoyle along with the Esprezoa at uncommon, really strong. And there you see Esprezoa, one of the top uncommons for this deck. You can pick up the Sanctum Gargoyle every turn. You can return a cheap artifact like we saw Sam doing. And with Ethereum Sculptor, it makes it cost less.
Yeah, now, interesting to note here of the top uncommons, Sam was really dedicated. Let's take a sneak peek here at Shenhar versus Mike Hron.
Right. Mike Hron, a dedicated Madison player, winner of Pro Tour Geneva. Winner of Pro Tour Geneva back in Time Spiral Block. And these are cards Mike will recognize because a lot of them are from Time Spiral Block.
Absolutely.
And there we go, Rift Sweeper on the side for Mike Hron. Mike playing some kind of green-blue-black deck. Shenhar, on the other hand, fresh off of a Grand Prix victory, has Murderous Redcap, Glenlander Archmage, and Spellstutter Sprite, and what looks to be some kind of blue-red tempo fairies deck. I see a Latchkey Fairy in the graveyard. Wow.
Wow. Now, Shenhar does have 1 blue mana up that he can use to counter one of these, or to counter this.
Right. So Mike Hron plays Hirobi's Whisper, splicing Hirobi's Whisper. Now Shenhar spends one of his Glenlander Archmage activations to counter the Hirobi's Whisper.
Now that'll counter both effects, right?
It counters both effects, but Mike does still get to keep the other Hirobi's Whisper, so he's got one more locked and loaded, ready to go.
Okay, so he traded a Hirobi's Whisper for an activation of the Glenlander Archmage, which is kind of just something that you end up being forced to do.
Right, and that Glenlander Archmage is doing really good work for Shenhar here, because otherwise the double removal spell on that Whisper could have been completely brutal.
Yeah.
Shenhar crashes in for 5, 2 from the red cap, 4, 2 from the red cap, 1 from the Archmage, 1 from the Spellstutter Sprite. In hands, I see a Fiery Fall and a Reach Through Miss for Shenhar, and a Stinkweed Imp and Hirobi's Whisper for Mike Hron. Shenhar also gripping a Torrent of Stone in case he needs to splice it onto that Reach Through Miss. So it looks like Mike Hron's playing the Graveyard deck. How have you found that deck to be, Marshall?
So I've played it twice, and the first time I played it, it was amazing. But I also had, we see Shenhar bashing in here again into the unopposed board state. I had 4 Worm Harvest, though I only played 3. It was enough. The second time I played it, I thought, well, this deck's so sweet, I'll just do it again. And then I didn't get 4 Worm Harvest, and it wasn't as good. So if you have all the pieces, and you need a lot of them.
And speaking of Graveyard, Mike Hron Death Rattles there.
Yeah, we're going to switch back to our main match here.
Right. And let's go back to this awesome Sam Black match going on here right now. All right, Sam leads off with a slightly slower start, 2 Vivid Lands, versus Ami's Pirate Spellbomb, with she's just happy to just cycle away looking for another card.
Yep. I saw that there's a Paradise Mantle in hand for Sam Black. Doesn't need it right now. Can save it for any number of different uses, mainly Storm Count later. Ooh,
looks like Sam has quite a few lands, but I also see a Path to Exile sitting in his hand, perhaps a Sanctum Gargoyle as well. So he's got some late game plays. And is that a Thirst for Knowledge also over there, and that'll do a great job of reloading Sam's hand.
Yeah, so during Ami's upkeep, Sam is going to cast Thirst for Knowledge here. He's got to be careful that he doesn't get that Paradise Mantle like Spellstutter Sprited or something like that.
And he does it in Ami's upkeep so that Ami couldn't say Logic Knot, for example, by playing an island.
Right.
But also to give Ami the least amount of information possible.
And interestingly, even though Sam can pitch any number of artifacts to his Thirst for Knowledge, he just doesn't need to. He's flooded out on lands, and so he just gets rid of 2 lands.
So Ami has to discard.
Wow, he just cannot hit a land drop. I mean, we wanted to see Sam Black's deck work, but this is a little too good, I think. All right, is that going to resolve? Yes.
So Paradise Mantle comes down, and off that Thirst for Knowledge, Sam drew Esprazoa.
Yep.
There it is. And with Paradise Mantle, it's essentially free. He can just pick up that Paradise Mantle every turn, replay it, and the Esprazoa has no drawback.
Now, interestingly, we saw Sam Black play the Paradise Mantle first to make sure that it's stuck, because he doesn't want to run Esprazoa out there, then play Paradise Mantle, have that get countered, and then have to just pick up his Esprazoa again anyway.
Now, interestingly, Ami is playing kind of like a Fairies deck, so he could have Spellstutter Sprite, right? So that's kind of why Sam did that, so
that's what I was saying.
It got sprited. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Now we're all caught up.
Right.
Bashing in for 4 here. And now he's got another option here, though, with Pyrite Spellbomb.
Right.
So even if one of these were to get taken care of, you'd have a backup plan here. And Esprazoa, windmills that one onto the table.
Very excited.
So what does he have here?
So I see a Pepper Smoke, Dream Spoiler Witches, a Latchkey Fairy.
Okay.
I'm not sure what he has for 3 mana, though. It's funny, the reason why I brought that Spellstutter Sprite thing up is I thought I saw a Sprite in Ami's hand, but I think I was just looking at a Latchkey Fairy. Otherwise, he would have certainly sprited that Mantle, I assume. All right, so Sam returns an artifact, plays his 6th land. Looks like he's gripping a Mirror Enforcer, Paradise Mantle, Path to Exile, Sanctum Gargoyle. There's the mantle again. And here comes Mirror Enforcer. Ami's going to Pestermite and tap down that Esprezoa, so it can't quite get in this turn.
Yeah, so no damage at all coming to Ami this turn, so that's nice. He gets a little bit of a reprieve, but he's still desperate for land drops. If he can get the Dream Spoiler, which is going, that can start to edge things back, but immediately Sam just takes out the Pestermite.
Right. Sam does not want Ami to get any kind of fairy engine going, or run into a Sign of Una perhaps.
Okay.
So yeah, just let him kill off that Pestermite.
And Ami unfortunately misses another land drop here. And the cards he's drawing are not amazing versus what Sam has produced here. A 4-3 with flying and a 4-4 on the ground are just huge. And the Fairies deck can have a pretty tough time dealing with big creatures like this. It's got access to cards like Hirobi's Whisper, but Ami doesn't have the mana to cast it, and you might not even have it at all.
All right. So Ami casts Pepper Smoke just to save a point of damage.
Yeah, and there's another reason that you want to get that Pestermite off the board as soon as possible.
Right. And there's Sanctum Gargoyle, probably bring back Pirate Spellbomb, and Sam is so far ahead. We see Ami has been, missed his land drops.
Yes, he's had mana woes consistently here, and he's facing death.
And looks like that's
almost no matter what here.
And that's it. He just packs him in. Sam Black 10-0 in the tournament with a pretty sweet blue-white artifact storm deck.
Yeah, question marks?
Question marks?
Yeah. But his deck looks awesome, and we got to see a little bit of it there. We didn't get to see it really opposed. Ami had mana problems both games, so that's tough. But I think we can probably... Are we going to be able to jump back to Shenhar here, or are they still going? Or they're going to go to game 2. All right, so they're getting ready to go. So we have a minute here, Gavin, to chat. But, Sam seems to be well positioned here to 3-0 this.
Right, his deck looks fantastic, and he's got some really interesting synergies going on there. And once again, we're talking about how you have to reevaluate cards in this format. We talked about that a lot yesterday.
Yeah.
And you see that some here, where Fairies was a very strong draft archetype in Lorwyn.
Yes.
But there weren't a lot of huge monsters running around in Lorwyn.
No.
Right?
And that's a big difference here. We saw that yesterday. When the Fairies deck faces down cards like maybe some of the dragons, the 5/5 flying dragons, there's a whole cycle of those floating around. Some of the green creatures that the green deck can make down on the ground. Now, the good news for the Fairies is they can fly over most of them, but if they're not in a position to be the aggressor, even just a 4/4 on the ground, we saw that with the Mirror Enforcer here from Sam Black, is really tough to deal with. I mean, yeah, they've got some answers. It's not like they have no cards in the deck, but their normal game plan of Dream Spoiler, Witching, and kind of getting creative means that they've got to start throwing Fairies in front of those things and using the Dream Spoiler Witch type shenanigans to make that work, and that is often a non-sustainable way to get through. If you can present enough big threats to that deck, they have a really tough time winning.
Well, especially if you stumble at all, like we saw in that match. I mean, he's missed a couple land drops and was just overrun by 4/4s, and the Fairies deck does not have a great answer to those, just on Fairies alone. So we're going to head in game 2 here. Shenhar playing some kind of a blue-red deck, and Mike Hron playing his 3-color deck. Let's take a look. Forest from Mike Hron, followed by a Vivid Land by Shenhar. Help fix his mana a little bit. Land go for both these guys. And Shenhar, is that an Ephemeron? It is.
Oh, geez.
Talked to a lot of pros yesterday. Many of them felt like that was the best common. Just so good. You suspend it, then it comes crashing in 4 turns later.
Great card to make a game plan around. It really kind of teaches you how to craft a game for future turns.
Although Mike's going to try and speed it up a little bit. Here's a Kodama's Reach, finding Mike's 3rd color. And maybe he'll be able to drop some big creatures onto the board next turn and start putting pressure on Shenhar. Shenhar is certainly on a roll after winning a Grand Prix, and
I think he wakes up on a roll.
Right, just baked and ready to go.
He's
right on a roll, right out of the oven. There you go. All right. So looks like Shenhar's hand is Aether Snipe, I think I see a Torn of Stone in there. No third turn play for Shenhar, though.
This could be a big one for Mike Hron, as he's got 5 mana now. Looks like he's going to suspend an Nantuko Shaman here, though. So not the scariest thing in the world from Shenhar's side. Still no pressure this turn.
And unsurprisingly, the Time Spiral block Pro Tour champion suspends a Time Spiral block card. Mike does love those.
Looks like Shenhar's just drawn a card.
Yep, just going to cycle that Reach Through Mist, trying to find some more action. And Shenhar just passes again on 4 mana. Not doing a ton, but with that suspended Ephemeron just ticking down,
yep.
I mean, he still has a pretty big threat in a couple turns.
He's got to feel good. There's a search for tomorrow off the card draw for him, a Tuco Shaman for Mike Hron. I see he's got his own Aaron Ephemeron in his hand.
And so Mike crashes in with that Nantuko Shaman after drawing a card from it when it comes into play. Mike's hand looks pretty stocked too, though. It's got a.
He can suspend some stuff. I think he's got 3 suspend cards in his hand right now.
Yeah, I think I see 2 giant Dust Wasps. Is that right?
There's at least one.
A Death Rattle, a Take Possession. He could easily take possession of that Aaron Ephemeron, which will certainly put a crimp on Shenhar's game plan.
He's just going to hard cast a 3/3 flying green creature somehow.
Good old planar chaos.
Yeah.
And Shenhar will have none of that business. Torn of Stone will take out the Dust Wasp.
All right, there's a Latchkey Fairy for Shenhar. Doesn't have any way to prowl it out, but he does have a Spellstutter Sprite in hand, and he could just wait and hope to get something with Spellstutter Sprite and then prowl out next turn.
Right, or just end step the Sprite and then attack next turn and prowl.
That's what I mean.
Oh, well, get something as in.
Oh, you're saying as a backup plan. Yeah, you're totally right. Yep.
Right. If Mike doesn't cast anything that costs 1,
you just
run it out there. Shenhar's also gripping Ryusei, which is pretty powerful. The Falling Star. No.
Which color is that?
The red one.
The red one.
The red one.
I know the name. Look, I never played that block. I know the colors. I know what they do. I don't know the names.
It's okay. Mike just hard cast Aaron Ephemeron there, so.
Okay.
Who needs to suspend things? We need to suspend them for 7 mana.
Yeah.
Right, and there's the Spellstutter Sprite.
Though it's a little awkward here because it's not going to be able to attack through the Ephemeron here.
Now, Shenhar does have another Torn of Stone in his hand.
Yeah, and Shenhar has another option here. If he's got another blue source, he can evoke. He does have, so he's got 2 choices here. He could just play Aether Snipe, bouncing the Ephemeron, just set back Mike a bunch, or he can evoke it and then get in with Spellstutter Sprite in his own Ephemeron, and then he can Latchkey Fairy as well for the prowl cost. He's also got 2 other cards that I'm not sure of besides that one. All right, so he's just going to start things off with the big boy here.
All right, and there's Ryusei. When in doubt, cast your 5/5 Flying Dragon.
Yeah, I like that play a lot.
Ryusei is super strong. Not only is it a 6 mana 5/5 flyer, but when it dies, it deals 5 damage to everything on the ground. And in Shenhar's deck, it looks like he's got a lot of flyers, so not exactly a lot of ground pounders clogging up the board.
Right, now there's only 1 creature on the ground currently, but it also means that like if Mike had plans of casting some big ground fatty, that's going to be potentially halted here.
Of course, we do know Mike has that Take Possession in his hand. He could potentially steal that Ryusei right here.
I would definitely do that.
Right. Now, he's got some options. He also has like a Death Rattle I think he could use if he wanted to Death Rattle away that Ryusei.
Okay.
Depends what Mike wants to save that Take Possession for. What's going to be better than Ryusei,
I mean, it's hard to imagine, like, when they play their big mythic dragon, like that's usually the thing that you want to grab with it, but.
And Mike just opts to search for tomorrow. See what tomorrow brings.
I'll let you know in a minute.
And that builds up his graveyard a little more so that his Death Rattle's a little easier to cast.
Uh-huh. All right, so we've entered into a pretty interesting mid-game portion of this game. Shenhar's up a game over Mike Hron. They're both sitting at 8-1. 8-1, or X-1 should be enough to make it to the top 8. So basically every game we see here is going to be an elimination match. And there's Death Rattle on Aaron Ephemeron. Now Shenhar has to be like, wait. Like, I mean, there's a reason why you could do that. Like, you don't want to lose your Shaman, right? But still, Ryusei is the biggest thing on the board.
Right, and it's possible Shenhar realizes something might be up.
He's definitely wary here about what could be going on.
So Shenhar, Torrent of Stones away that Mike's Aaron Ephemeron, crashes in for 6, 5 with the Ryusei, 1 on the Spellstutter Sprite, and then, going to prowl that Latchkey Fairy. So quite a strong
Love
board.
It. And he draws another Latchkey Fairy, which is likely to get prowled as well, because if Mike takes possession of Ryusei now, it's going to be tapped still.
Right, and that allows Shenhar to crash in for 4 damage, and then prowl out that Latchkey Fairy.
Yeah, draw another card and bolster up his board pretty nicely here. And remember, Shenhar also has Aether Snipe in hand, so there's a really nice line here for Shenhar. Yeah, and it looks like Mike's not going to have any of it. He's not going to play into that, at least not currently. And there it is. Steal your guy. He's going to use up that Death Rattle.
All right, so the play there was Hirobi's Whisper on the Latchkey Fairy, and then Mike steals the Ryusei with Take Possession. That's the last of Mike's cards. Now he's playing off the top of his deck. Shenhar only has Spellstutter Sprite left, but I feel like Latchkey Fairy will be soon to enter the fray. Unless he wants to cast
Maybe he just wants to snipe his guy back right now. Although this will be interesting to see what he does.
Shenhar also drew Glenlunder Archmage, so he's got the option of either sniping back his Ryusei or attacking and playing both the Archmage and Prowl the Latchkey Fairy. I think I would snipe, and he snipes.
You would snipe here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what he does. I mean, just make sure you don't take any damage from your Ryusei.
I like sniping too. I mean, remember, Shenhar's at 11. Now, his opponent's top decking, so he's in a pretty good position here. Also, the Aether Snipe conveniently blocks the Nantuko Shaman quite nicely as well, so it just ensures that he takes 0 damage here. Yeah, Shenhar's in a great position all of a sudden. 3 really quality cards in hand, 7 mana on his side, and a superior board state. I'll take that any day.
Right, absolutely. You've got the 4/4, and you also make sure that Mike can't draw like a Logic Knot or something that could potentially.
And Shenhar draws a Murderous Red Cap as well.
Yikes. Shenhar's hand is locked and loaded.
So would you go for Prowl Latchkey and play the Red Cap here, or are you just re-slamming Ryusei?
I think I like Latchkey Archmage.
Okay.
I especially like getting Archmage active just so that.
But it wouldn't be active though, right?
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't be active this turn, but it's on the board. If you Prowl the Latchkey Fairy first, you can see if you drew a land potentially, and then keep a blue mana up.
Interestingly, he passes a turn here.
But he decides he just doesn't want to take any risks.
Yeah.
Doesn't want Mike to draw, have 2 Hirobi's Whispers or something.
Sure.
And just sits on the Glenlunder Archmage once again.
Yeah, it's a conservative play from Shenhar, but it certainly makes sense here, as the only thing that can really ruin his day from this point is some type of 2-for-1 type removal situation.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, Shenhar's hand is so stocked, and his board position is so good that he just doesn't want to risk running into, something like a Hirobi's Whisper Splice or, some insane spell bomb that could really ruin Shenhar's day. Although worth noting is that Split Second gets past the Glenlunder Archmage, so if he does have another Take Possession or something, that could be an option for Mike Hron. This player is playing to be 9-1 in Grand Prix Las Vegas. It's been a crazy tournament, 4,500 players. It looks like Mike's going to serve in there with that Nantuko Shaman.
You block here?
I don't think so. I think I'm okay going to 8.
Going to 8's not a big deal against this particular board, right? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen here from Shenhar's side of the table? If you're in Shenhar's seat, like, what is the thing you're really worried about here? The thing you're worried about is losing your board position. It's not getting randomly killed here, I don't think.
And also 2 uses from that Glenlunder Archmage could be extremely valuable if, Mike finds some answers.
I don't know what that was.
He suspended something. I think from the corner it's a Dirkwood Baloth, but I'm not totally sure. Or no.
Is it another Nantuko Shaman?
Oh, another Nantuko Shaman.
He wants to draw a card.
All right. So now Shenhar crashes in for 6. Drops Mike down to a paltry 2 life. Oh.
Death Rattle?
Death Rattle on the Aether Snipe before damage. If Shenhar lets this resolve, it'll kill it, but he's got the Glenlunder Archmage once again.
Right, but it's kind of interesting because then he won't have the Prowl for the Latchkey Fairy, and so it's kind of a little bit of a, what do you value here?
I think I like activating the Archmage, especially because you can cast the Latchkey post-combat, but...
He decided not to attack with his Spellstutter Sprite.
All right, and yeah, Shenhar's going to do just that. Glenlunder Archmage, countering the Death Rattle, chopping Mike's life in half from that Aether Snipe, dropping him to 4.
Mike's just got to be sick here. He sees Shenhar tapping 4 mana, and he knows that Shenhar has the dragon in his hand, and he's just not bothering to cast it. It's just like, jeez.
Yep, and there's a Murderous Redcap.
Don't even need it.
Killing off Mike's Nantuko Shaman. Mike gets another Shaman, but he draws a land and a Tysus.
A Tysus that he can't cast, right? Is it another
I don't think
black mana up there?
Not only can he not cast it, but Shenhar has that active Bloodlunder Archmage. Once again, the persist on that, doing a lot of work, making sure that he can get 2 activations out of it.
By the way, that would be the worst case scenario, right?
Right.
Tysus, like, because they can hit Aether Snipe and actually kill him at 8.
Right. That's why keeping that Archmage is so crucial.
Yeah. Now I can't see if that's another swamp peeking out there anyway, though. But I am curious.
Shenhar cycles Reach Through Mist at the end of Mike's turn.
And what did he draw? A Fiery Fall?
I think he drew a Fiery Fall. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
His opponent casts a 5/5 and he draws a Fiery Fall.
Man, Shenhar's deck looks awesome.
Yeah, I would play this deck for sure.
It's like got a ton of removal spells, some great blue creatures. And there's the Fiery Fall on the Dirkwood Baloth, and Mike just picks him up. That's game. And then Shenhar takes the match.
That's it, yeah. Shenhar's actually going to stay at X1 here, looking to back-to-back these things.